The human brain can't stand still, even when it gets to the top of the hill. Just can't stop and admire the view. Always got to have something new. The human brain's an intelligent fool. Build you a hospital, build you a school. You wake up the very next day. The progress train took it all away. The progress train can demolish your town, selling us heaven when we're hellbound. When we're hellbound, fed by apathy, driven by greed, always running at top speed, going so fast. You won't notice it till it's past. Doesn't give a damn about yesterday when you forget what it took away. You'll know the progress train roll right over you. Juggernaut hurtling down the road. You're not in control, you're part of the load. Running the lights won't slow down. Get in its way and it'll run you down. The progress train is on a one-way track. Take you there, won't bring you back. And when you start singing, I'm alright, Jack. I'm alright, Jack. I'm alright, Jack. You'll know the progress train ran right into you. The girl in the red shoes had to dance. The progress train has to advance. Tables to turn, money to earn, bridges to burn. We never learn, got no destination, it'll go anywhere. Doesn't even know when it's got there. Got no beginning, got no end. Doesn't even care what's around the bend. Got to grow, got to change. Build up, tear down, rearrange. Got to move on, dirty or clean. It's an atom bomb. It's a washing machine. It's a love song. It sings, seducing you with things that ease your heart and please your mind. The passengers sleep and the driver's blind. A fire in his pants, he don't dance, no romance. They want you now, they want you now, they want you now, and they'll have you now. That's the progress train, and it's right over you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to tonight's community celebration. Just before we get started, I want to go over a few tips for Zoom tonight. As always, we have the option for closed captions on this meeting, and you can find that by scrolling to the bottom of your screen and clicking live transcript, and there'll be some options there for the subtitles. Next is the chat box, and we want you to engage with the chat box because you have been muted and we may not be able to let you all speak here tonight. So I invite you to use the chat box and let us know how you're feeling about this big news about the glass plant. If you have any questions or you need support at all, you can reach out to myself by searching for my name, Megan, in the chat box, or emailing me at megan@wellingtonwaterwatchers.ca. And if you're joining by phone and you have some questions for the meeting tonight, feel free to send them via email. All right, everyone, enjoy the meeting. Melissa, over to you.
Welcome, everybody. I don't know about you, but that video makes me a little emotional after everything we've been through over the last 3 months. I just want to welcome you all, and I'm so excited to be here tonight, as always, but the tone is a bit different tonight, so that's great. It's been a long few months, and tonight's going to be about reflecting and celebrating a bit for where we are now. So I'm going to hand it over to Mike Bockwell. You guys all know him as the campaign director for Wellington Water Watchers. So he's going to go through the evening for us.
Thank you, Melissa. Again, we invite you, as we're getting started, to introduce yourself through the chat box. The agenda tonight is, as Melissa says has a different tone. And in a moment, Melissa's going to, we reached out to Mayor Matheson to ask him if he'd like to address the meeting. And he has sent a statement, which will, in a moment, Melissa will read out. And then Melissa and Mike are going to provide an update kind of where we're at, where we are right now. In addition to that, several of the members of the steering committee are going to speak very briefly about things that they're doing that are moving us forward, initiatives coming up. So that'll be the first section of the agenda. Of course, we'll take questions through the chat box and do our best to answer them. Then we have a series of speakers from the community, people who you all know, people who are leaders who've been very active in this campaign. And they're all going to speak to the questions, what have we accomplished so far? What have we won? What does it mean? And what's left for the community still to do? While they're each speaking, we'll be inviting you to make comments in the chat box, either adding to what they're saying or amplifying what they're saying. And then the closing part of the meeting will be talking about next steps. And again, Melissa and Mike Sullivan will talk about what the next steps are, and then we'll adjourn. I always like to ask the question, are we at the same meeting? And if we are at the same meeting, then we'll move forward. And Melissa, I'll hand it back to you.
Okay, so we had asked the mayor to speak tonight. He did decline that, but about an hour ago, he did send a statement that he wanted me to share with the group. So as per the mayor, in mid-January, due to the ongoing provincial lockdown and subsequent emergency stay-at-home order, City Council made a determination not to proceed with the review and processing of the Xinyi Development and Cost Sharing Agreement. This agreement would permit the construction of the Xinyi glass manufacturing facility on the lands recently annexed by the city. Since that time, Xinyi has stated publicly that they have suspended its plan for the proposed glass manufacturing facility in Stratford indefinitely. The city has not been contacted by Xinyi directly and became aware of this decision through their media release. In light of this information, the city will no longer be considering the development and cost sharing agreement. The lands cannot be developed for industrial purposes until servicing is brought to the area. The city is working cooperatively with its partnering municipalities to discuss next steps and develop a strategy for the annexed lands. So I've been asked to kind of give a bit of a starting point of where we are now and what's going on. So I'm not sure if anyone's heard, but Xinyi has decided to postpone this indefinitely, which is fantastic news. Super excited about that. When I first heard, I think I went through all the emotions. I cried. I had a few days where I sort of walked through life in a bit of disbelief about the whole scenario. And then here we are today. So I just want to say I'm so proud of us, all of us, of the city, of all of the efforts put in. I'm so proud to be part of everything, even if it's a small part. I'm just so thankful for everything that the community has done. And then as far as where we are now, so Councillor Cody Sebin will be making a motion at the March 8th council meeting that the city requests the MZO be rescinded. So I'm sure you'll hear about that again later in the meeting. This is a vital step in knowing that the project is officially dead. So until the time that the minister has revoked that MZO, we need to just be vigilant and aware and kind of keep our eyes and ears open as a community, and in case anything pops up so that we can react at the time. So, but yay, I'm super excited. So I think Mike has some to say from here.
I unmuted myself. So first off, I want to say thank you so much to the people of Stratford. This could not have happened without all of those wonderful, wonderful people who are supporting us and supporting themselves by all their actions. Since the Toronto Star article this past week, I've had 5 or 6 inquiries from other communities wondering, how did we do this? Because they're not having the same kind of good fortune that we apparently have had. And my answer has always been, start with a really good community, a really good, engaged community, people who care, people who listen, people who are willing to spend their Friday evenings in the middle of February listening to a bunch of talking heads on a Zoom call. That made all the difference to what we've done and to the fact that we were successful. I think you need to give yourselves a round of applause because that's what's happened here. It's been a community effort, and the community's done it, and I want to thank you all. Can I have my slides? Because what I want to really talk about, besides praising the community, is the things that we're still doing, because it's not, completely. What are we still up to is what I wrote on my little slide, because there are things that are still in play that we don't intend to give up on. And so, because some of them will have a future impact. Next slide, please. So we filed a complaint about the fact that the City Council held too many of its meetings in secret, and we filed a closed meeting investigation request, which ends up with the law firm, a big, powerful law firm in Toronto called Aird Bairless. And they will be investigating whether Stratford follows its own bylaws and provincial law when it holds closed secret meetings. In particular, we've asked about the MZO, but we're hoping that the closed meeting investigator will give Stratford some guidance on all of its closed meetings, because it's certainly not following its own bylaw. Next slide. In early December, we asked to see a copy of the investment framework agreement signed in November 2017 between Kathleen Wynne government and Xinyi Glass. And we've been told that the province has decided to release it, subject to objections from Xinyi, but we still don't have that. Xinyi had 30 days from the beginning of January to respond, or maybe it was 60 days. Anyway, we haven't heard anymore. Next slide. We have also asked the city for all contracts concerning Xinyi, MZOs, and annexation with the GSP group. GSP, you'll recall, and its president, Chris Pidgeon, were acting on behalf of Xinyi. They're the people who were guiding those public meetings that Xinyi held. And Mr. Pidgeon, in a letter to the Beacon Herald, noted his new title as project manager, Xinyi Canada Glass, though I've checked and his company says, no, he's still the president of GSP. It would be a conflict of interest for a consultant to be acting for a planning agency, which is the city, at the same time as it is acting for a firm seeking planning permission from that agency. So we've asked to see all the contracts to see just exactly what GSP might have been up to. Next slide. We've also, through our lawyer, asked to see copies of the secret letters of agreement between the city and Xinyi, as well as any other pertinent document. And so far, he has no reply. I'm not hopeful they're going to reply in any time soon, because I think they think it's not worth our while to see those things. But I think it is worth our while. So we'll see what happens. Next slide, please. We are also with the NDP. They're still waiting a decision from the Integrity Commissioner as to whether Xinyi and GSP, remember GSP from earlier, broke the law by lobbying the Premier and the Minister without registering as a lobbyist. Now, there was an interesting note on this. You may recall that Xinyi hired the firm Navigator and a man named Braden Akers to be their lobbyist at Queen's Park. Well, apparently he has withdrawn his lobbyist registration, so he is no longer Xinyi's lobbyist, and they no longer have a lobbyist registered at Queen's Park. Next slide, if there is one. There isn't one. Okay, so those are all the things that we're up to, and there are other bits and pieces in the works, and of course other bits and pieces left undone that I'm going to let others from Get Concerned Stratford talk about. And Mike Bockwell, I'm going to ask you to tell me who's next.
Well, and just before we go to who's next, I just want to see if anybody has in the chat box a question for Mike.
Okay.
I think, Mike, there's been a kind of a thing rambling in the chat box, and you've spoken to it, but I think it might be useful for you to speak to it again, just very briefly. What does suspended mean? What does suspended indefinitely mean? Any comments you want to make about that?
Okay, I think, but I can't be certain. Judging the mayor's response today gives us more information. Xinyi made a public release that they were suspending this application indefinitely. The mayor's response today says that the city is no longer pursuing Xinyi. They are no longer working on a cost-sharing agreement with Xinyi. I think Xinyi is keeping their powder dry and sense that they are, if something should change, if suddenly all the people in Stratford yell, come back, they leave themselves an option to do that. But I seriously doubt that that's going to happen. And I note that there are other municipalities in Ontario who have popped up and expressed an interest in hosting Xinyi, so more power to them. I think the mayor's response in saying that they are now trying to figure out what to do with all this land they annexed that isn't serviced, that has no plan to service it, that has an expense to service it, is a very good indication that the city has no intentions of continuing with Xinyi.
Thanks, Mike. And Luann, I see your question in the chat box. What communities want them? And we've seen an article, you can Google this and find it yourself, that the Sarnia-St. Clair area has expressed an interest. So, and frankly, if this plant's going to go ahead, we've said from the very beginning, it should be using lake water and be on a brownfield site. So that's actually an appropriate community if this is going to go forward. Okay, Mike, you used the word annex, so that's my clue to Jamie. I'm going to give him 10 seconds warning here that Jamie Gibb is going to come on next. He's going to introduce himself. He's going to talk about the annexation issue. And then after that, we're going to hear from Doug Tripp. So Jamie, you just turned your mic. There you are. You're on.
Right on. Is my mic on?
Your mic is on.
Terrific. Okay, so I just did a number of bullet points here and not committed myself to much time, so this is going to go quick for everybody, and it's on some planning issues. Firstly, my first thought was that our government occurs at 3 different levels: the federal, provincial, and municipal. And of these 3, the municipal government deals with the matters that are literally closest to home. And so they're also the closest to the heart and closest to the emotions. And so for this reason alone, municipal governments really do need to seek out personal participation of their residents more than any other level of government. That goes without saying. Second point was that in this process, I had a planner share with me that if it's the right project in the right place, it will find its way to that home through the Planning Act. There's no need to subvert the Planning Act if you have proposed the right project for the right place. So that really does defeat the need for MZOs in almost every case. News from Stratford. I was just chatting today with their new manager of planning, Alyssa Bridge. She started on January the 1st of 2021. Young, bright, she comes with a terrific CV and very highly recommended. And it sounds like the city of Stratford is very lucky to have landed her as their new manager of planning. The last manager of planning for Stratford retired in July of 2020. So that essentially means that Stratford was driving forward without a full-time manager of planning from August to January 1st of last year, which is interesting because maybe that was okay, because the entire annexation was both administered and communicated out of the CAO's office. And this is interesting because essentially almost every annexation that takes place is carried out through a planning department, which I think that most of us would consider to be quite intuitive, that that's how it's done, but not in this case. Couple of notes on upcoming events. Stratford will be passing a new zoning bylaw probably in mid-2021. Keep your eyes open for that. They will also be doing an official plan comprehensive review in 2022. And planning issues, let's face it, they can be dry and dusty. And I've discovered they're even that way for professional planners who I believe sometimes wish they could probably have a caffeine IV drip attached to them when they're in some of these hearings of tribunals and writing documents. So why would any of the rest of us want to read the provincial policy statement? You don't have to. You don't have to delve into these issues in great depth. But when they come up and they're advertised in the community, it's important to weigh in on them. And the parallel here is that having to deal with Xinyi was very stressful for everybody for the last 3 months. But Xinyi was ushered in by the annexation process that happened last winter. And it's hard to get people interested in something like an annexation because, like I say, it's very dry and dusty, but it's so important to the future of a community. So when the official plan comprehensive review comes along in 2022, same thing. Participate in it because that's the point where the future growth and the future evolution of your community, that's where they set the stage for how it's all going to happen and the direction that you're going to take. So keep an eye out for the Beacon Herald notices and for the different scouts in your community like Mike Sullivan, I do it a bit, Dan Graver. There's people out there who keep their eyes open. And so whenever you see people pop up that there's an important planning issue, pay attention and jump in with both feet early on. Okay, thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Jamie. Again, folks, as we're having some short presentations here, please be free to make comments and ask questions. And if you have questions, we'll ask them. Jamie, I hope you're here. I hope you're seeing the thank yous in the chat box. Doug Tripp is going to speak next, and after that, we're going to hear from Sharon Collingwood. Doug.
Okay, thanks, Mike. In his list of matters that we're continuing to work on, Mike Sullivan included reference to some issues related to GSP Group. GSP Group is the planning consultant that was acting on behalf of Xinyi, and their principal, their president, Chris Pidgeon, became the voice of Xinyi during these proceedings. So this is kind of an interesting subplot to this story that we've been involved in, and it relates to the role that professional planners play. Like many professions, professional planners, of which Chris Pidgeon is one, are obliged to follow a professional code of conduct or code of practice, and that code of practice is articulated by and regulated by their professional body, which is the Ontario Professional Planners Institute. So Mike alluded to one of the two issues that we're concerned about in terms of Mr. Pidgeon's conduct in this matter. He pointed out that Mr. Pidgeon had, at least has identified himself as an employee of Xinyi as their project manager in a rather vitriolic letter that he wrote to the Beacon Herald, amongst other things. So that is in fairly evident non-compliance with one of the clauses in the code of practice. The other one is that you can't represent both sides in a deal. And clearly, Mr. Pidgeon has been representing Xinyi, both in the Guelph Aramosa case that was eventually declined by the community, and in this one here in Stratford. But he also has been, his firm has done a lot of consulting work for Stratford, but in particular, he was involved in providing advice on this, on the annexation of the lands under an employment land justification report that was written for Invest Stratford. Interestingly enough, it was released 1 year ago today. It's a little bit of an anniversary. February 19th, 2020, the report came out. And it was quite clear in that in the report, the purpose of the report was to provide the justification for seeking a ministerial zoning order from the province. That's articulated in the report, and clearly that's what the report did. So Mr. Pigeon, both directly in consulting to Invest Stratford, and then indirectly to the city itself through Invest Stratford, the advice carried into the process that the city was negotiating, and that's not allowed. A registered professional planner cannot be representing both sides in a deal. So on our behalf, Mike Sullivan has filed a formal complaint with OPPI, the professional body, spelling out these concerns that we have about GSP Group's performance in this matter, and we'll see where it goes. It's important because it's just one of the shady practices that seem to have inflicted this process from the beginning, and I don't think it's right, and it should be challenged. So we'll see what happens.
Thank you, Doug. Pauline J, looks like you've got your hand up. I don't know if that's intentional or not. And the best way to ask your question, Pauline, is to put it in the chat box. So thank you, Doug. And there's a big, long comment in the box from Barb and Jamie Cottle. I hope you have a chance to read that. And there's thanks for you, Doug, in the chat box for you to look at as well. So Sharon Collingwood is going to speak next. And after that, we're going to hear from Dan Graver. Sharon.
Okay, well, I was going to talk about the signs, and I was going to talk about social communications. So maybe Danny, you'll put up my the slide. Yeah, I got this in the email. I got it from Catherine B, and I thought, how cool is this? Right? People are all asking me, well, what do we do with our signs now? Are you going to come pick them up? Should we clean up? And I think the general consensus is no, we're leaving them up until we know about the MZO. And this is what Catherine's doing. And I think, you know, do as you wish, but that's what I'm doing with mine. And if you have any comments, if you want your signs picked up, or just let me know at Get Concerned Stratford at Gmail. And that's about all I had to say about the signs, but it's cool, isn't it? The other thing I was going to talk about was our social communications. Just wanted to say that the community has been our biggest resource, just like everybody else says, you know, and me, I'm on the doorstep a lot talking to people, and I can't help but just say it's amazing the amount of ideas and information and advice and all sorts of stuff that we get on the doorstep, email, phone. It's really phenomenal. And it really, I keep thinking with this community, 2 + 2 is 5, because it's just somehow you get all of this information mixed up together, and you have more than you ever thought you would with the separate components. So what we've done with the, as you probably know, with the social communications, we've got, for one thing, we've got our website. And what I'm hoping that we're going to do with the website from now on is to show our gratitude, because I'm really grateful. I am so grateful. I want to pass it on. I want to pay it forward. And I'm hoping that maybe we can pay it forward with the website by putting up what we did, what tools can you use, suggestions, connections, anything that we can, where can you get help? That would be a good thing to do with our website. We can also link to other people. Like Mike said, I've also had people who have written me, and I got a letter last week, or this week actually, right after the announcement came out. And it's really funny because when this whole thing started, and Melissa and I were sort of holding on to each other like 2 little field mice going, what are we going to do? And I wrote this letter to Susan McSherry saying, basically, help, oh my God, help. And it was a really pathetic little letter. And it was sort of funny because I got the same letter. It was the letter that said, help, oh, help. And I would really like to help. I mean, it's just been such a horrible but wonderful 3 months. And I'm hoping that we can use the website as a connection to other groups that are fighting things like this. It's a good place for putting research. It's a good place for putting the history of what we've done. We've still got our Twitter account, and that actually is quite useful if you want to needle somebody, so we don't use it too much, but it's sometimes fun to just, send a message to Doug Ford or somebody. So we do that. And of course, we've got our Facebook page, and I think the Facebook page has been really good because people really talk a lot on there. And ideas come up there too, just like on the doorstep. And I'm hoping that we can keep up our Facebook page. And of course, not everybody's on Facebook. Not everybody likes Facebook. But if we're on Facebook and something really kind of important comes up there, we can always send it on out through the newsletter so that you will get that information as well. And that takes us to the last thing, which is the mailing list. Now we've got, I guess it's 550 odd people on our mailing list now. That's pretty good. I mean, we didn't really hustle anybody, just people have just come and signed up. It's great. And it occurred to me when I was making my notes up for this talk that if something terrible happened, like, tanks came into the park and started killing the swans or whatever, we could send out an email. We could send out a mail, something on the mailing list, and we could say, hey, call 10 of your friends right now. We could reach 1/10 of the population of Stratford in a few hours if it was a real emergency. That's a really valuable thing. So I'm hoping that people will want to keep that up. And I will commit to maintaining all these things, and I will commit to doing a newsletter probably monthly. We'll fix a date. And of course you can vote on that by just unsubscribing if you don't like that, or maybe giving me some feedback as to what I should be doing. So I think that's sort of an update on what we've been up to.
Thank you, Sharon. That's too vivid an image for me to handle, of Sharon's or tanks pulling into the park to hunt down the swans. So I'm going to take me a little while to recover from that image. But your testament to the strength of the community is a lot easier for me to imagine. And what you'll see happening in the chat box is people are starting to say some things about, yeah, like, what should we do next? We could need to do this next, et cetera, et cetera. And at the end of tonight's conversation, we're going to talk a little bit about what's next and where to go next. And there's also been several requests in the chat box for making up stickers that are like the ones that were in the sign you showed us about the no MZO lesson. So I think we can think about that, and it might be easy something to do. We could turn around quickly. And as the meeting continues to go on, if you would like a sticker for your lawn sign, please say something in the chat box, because that'll help us know what the interest is in something like that. There's 3 more people we're going to hear from briefly before we move to the next section of the agenda. We're going to hear next from Dan Graver, and then after that, Deborah Smith, and then Susan McSherry. So Dan, do you want to join us? Turn on your mic and your video. We're looking for you, Dan. Is Dan a co-host?
Yes, it looks like Dan has maybe had an internet connection issue. Right. So maybe we'll come back.
Okay, let's go to Deb then, and then we'll go to Dan when he signs back in. Deb, you want to turn your mic on?
Hi. Is my mic on? Yes.
And your video too.
My video is on. Hi, guys. So, wow, what a win, right? Well, I guess it is a win. Just a few things that have come to mind. Lorena McKenna, thank you. Everything. This has been such an amazing ride. And I remember introducing you the first rally and thinking there's this woman at my side and who I adore and has been an inspiration to me all my life. and I'm now introducing Lorena McKenna. And I don't think my heart was exploding in my chest at the time, and I don't think I could have been any happier. What my big thing is now is what the annexation of this land might be. And I think I brought up to Leslie, it could be an arboretum. It could be a world-class arboretum. My husband and I were in Chicago for 12 years, and they have one of the most beautiful world-class arboretums. It attracts people from all over the world, and there are at least 300 annual jobs a year. What an idea. We could start something like an arboretum, and in the back of that arboretum have a little glass blowing factory. And we could buy little glassed ornaments for our Christmas trees every year. And we can talk about the environment and trees and helping the environment. And this would be something that we could plant for future generations, and we could help with Lorena's Wise Communities, and we could help with climate momentum. And we can really learn from this mini revolution, what we just walked through. So those are my thoughts. This has been quite an adventure for me. I was welcomed into this group by Sharon after starting Caremonger Stratford. I've never worked with such an intelligent and passionate group in my life. I will miss them all dearly. And I honestly started to cry when I learned about this win of ours, because I was really getting me down. And I'm glad that we did win. I'm really upset that Xinyi is still around. They have not answered the GHG questions. If they go to Sarnia, we are putting together a report, and we hope to pass that report on to the good people of Sarnia. And everything we knew, just like Guelta Hermosa, passed it on to us, so that if Sarnia has questions, they don't have to dig and start from scratch either, because they are not answering the questions that need to be answered. And there are a lot of reasons this company should not be here, and just shuffling it around Ontario is not on. So thank everyone. Thank you thousandfold. And Lorena, Wise Communities, everybody, it's been a ride. And I hope that if the proposal of what can we do with this land comes up, we can do a lot with this land, and we can learn from this land, and we can give this land back to the generations of the future. And we can create 320 jobs like that. So thank you.
Thank you, Deb. There's a lot of love in the chat box for you. And I know that you're quite well known in the community.
I lost my tooth, so I'm kind of mumbling.
And you've done terrific work in the community on behalf of among the caremongers. There's a really positive response to your arboretum ideas in there. Somebody else has suggested that maybe there should be a glass monument of some kind erected on the site to show the fragility of democracy. There's some really interesting ideas percolating there. And somebody said that we should write a report about what's happened here for others to learn from. And that's on our list of things that we're thinking about doing going forward. So thank you, Deb. And I think Dan Graver is back. Are you connected, Dan? Yeah, can you turn on your mic and your video? And
yeah, I am. It's a little glitchy.
Okay.
But it's working away here. Yeah, just a few things that I was working on, and as we were introduced there on things that we're continuing to work on in regards to the closed doors meeting and how this all transpired. Interesting to note that XinyiCanada.ca still just has that one page up. I find that very, I don't know, alarming, strange. They have 80 employees in Canada, and they run a sales office out of Markham. And if you type in XinyiCanada.ca, you only see their media release. And that's been all week since Tuesday. Finding that strange. I've contacted the ombudsman as well as the closed doors investigator, and I don't think either Mike or myself, I haven't heard. I'm starting to bug the city now that perhaps they should contract somebody who will actually respond. That's going to be kind of my weekly thing, bugging them. I haven't heard from them. It's been, I think mine was about January 14th or 15th, and I haven't heard a word yet. I was doing some digging around today on Mr. Tommy Wong, and I got a hit in regards to Festival Hydro, which was interesting. And remember that Stratford is the lone shareholder of Festival Hydro. Their directors include Mayor Matheson, Brad Beatty, and Graham Bunting. And all three of those receive a stipend to be on that board. And it is probably one of the most coveted positions as a councillor monetarily. It's the highest paid board that you can belong to. And you know, really it's, I think it runs more to my seniority. It's the same people every year. But what's interesting, and I don't think I can share my screen, but I'm going to drop the file so you can see it, is an application by the Festival Hydro. I'll put this in the chat box.
Dan, if you'd like to share it, you can share your screen.
Okay, share my screen. Good, because I put it up there. That's awesome. And this, I have a very messy screen. I teach at Conestoga, and the students tease me about my messy desktop. This is a service application from Festival Hydro. And in particular, look at the submitted date. This is, and I'll show you the history behind this. This was submitted December 20th, 2019. That is a month before the annexation meeting and the touted public meeting. The mayor was on one of our meetings and said, we had a public meeting during the annexation process. And he touted that and was quite proud of that. But what was going on before that annexation meeting? Well, Festival Hydro was applying to take over service in the area for Xinyi. It's an application to the Ontario Energy Board amending the licensed service area. Currently, the service area is by Ontario Hydro, and the subject area will be owned by Xinyi Canada Glass Limited. And I'm reading this and I'm thinking, this is before the public meeting. So to me, what I take out of this, the public meeting meant nothing. It was just a motion. And the mayor can tout that there was public consultation in it, but this was done. This was done, set. We have Festival Hydro, which you, I, and everyone in Stratford is a shareholder of, and they're saying that it's sold and it's done. And the festival respectfully submits it in the interest of the public. The public meeting hadn't even occurred yet. There's the supporting letter of the developer in this. Registered owner, Tommy Wong, president, Xinyi Glass Limited, again, submitted in the public interest. It goes on to say that the service area, and then, sorry, my connection might be going. Can you hear me okay? It goes on that Festival Hydro is, does the area of Stratford, they're equal or superior to Ontario Hydro, and the developer wants to have Festival Hydro and not Hydro One. So that's from December 20th, and this is the official submission on December 20th of 2019. And it goes in great detail as a submission to the Energy Board. But then you start looking at some of the back letters as well. And this goes back to July 23rd. And this is to the chair of CEO of Festival Hydro. And Hydro One is confirming that we'll support your application to change that over to Festival Hydro, July of 2019. And then we have Xinyi Glass on the 29th of June. It says Xinyi Glass Limited would like to confirm our preference of Festival Hydro to be our local distributor that supplies the development. We understand Festival Hydro will need to make an application board to amend the service area and description that's included. So I really found that astounding that we could have a community meeting that's part of the Planning Act and a requirement. Some of the letters that were written to the minister, they were happy that Stratford was doing a public consultation through the annexation process. And I have to say, after reading that, they were just going through the motions. This was all done, everything. They're saying, Mr. Wong saying he owns the land. He's going to own the land. It's his. Festival Hydro saying it's Xinyi's. I was just amazed by it. Anyway, my little update on that.
Your little updates sounds like a bit of a bombshell, Dan. And that seems to be the kind of comments we're seeing in the chat box right now. Lots of appreciation. And you've unearthed something really significant that requires more digging and some more follow-up. We've been deliberately kind of asking everybody from the steering committee to come on tonight and make a brief update on things that they're involved in so you can see them and know the full scope of the people who are involved in leadership. The last person we're going to hear from right now before we move to the next part of the agenda is Susan McSherry. I'm going to sneak in a kind of comment about Susan here first. Susan was the head of the group, the leader of the group in Guelph, Aramosa that successfully fought Xinyi off in 2018. I was working for the Water Watchers then. I met Susan through that campaign. We worked together. I'm sure what Susan's going to say is that she's impressed with the fact you did it in 3 months. It took them 5 months, I think, in Guelph, Aramosa to beat them off, and you've done it in 3. And as a result of Susan's successful participation in that campaign and us meeting each other, she came on the board of the Water Watchers. And on November the 11th, I got a phone call from Melissa saying, help. And the first thing I said was, call Susan. So that's my introduction to Susan. She joined the leadership group. She doesn't live in Stratford. And now Susan, now that I've fully embarrassed her a little bit here, thank you, Susan. And your comments now, please.
Thanks, Mike. First of all, I want to say to the residents of Stratford that you are extraordinary, and it makes me want to move to your community more and more every day. I cannot thank you for being so engaged and involved and willing to put yourself out there, and that's a marvelous thing. So to the residents, to the letter writers and the phone callers and the rally attenders, and to Wise Communities and those wonderful vigilistas, Peggy and Leslie, who were heroic in the extreme cold. You spoke to the importance of grassroots movements and the importance of democratic movements. And I truly believe in this day and age that that's where democracy lies. And when we're dealing with a provincial government that is dismantling and undermining environmental laws and protections and allowing developers to run willy-nilly, we must be vigilant. And we must be willing to act and to keep our eyes and ears open and to share what knowledge we gain. And for Melissa and Mike Sullivan and Jamie Gibbons, Sharon Collingwood and Deb and Doug, and Mike Bockwell, David Donnelly, you know, it's just phenomenal what a willingness to do the digging and research can do. And so I'm a big proponent of paying it forward. The situation that's going on right now or about to start in St. Clair Township, which is a rural township about consisting of about 15,000 people. If you've heard of the Ontario Blue Coast, that's where we're talking about, the St. Clair River, which has undergone a lot of rehab and still has too many chemical sediments on the bottom of the river. And it has been known as Chemical Valley for so long. The council of this township it's been reported that they have sent a letter of support to Xinyi saying that they are interested in having them come to the township and build the glass plant there. Now, there are two sites they're recommending. One is a brownfield site and one is a greenfield site, which abuts the CN rail lines. And we know, having seen in Guelph Massa and in Stratford, that this Xinyi prefers a lot of land, green land, with a lot of access to a lot of water and immediate access to a railway line, and where they can build spur lines. Now, at the moment, I have not been able to find any response from Xinyi. I believe that the plan to send a report of what Stratford went through, to have people write letters to the St. Clair Township municipality, to the councillors there, to the media outlets there, which include the Sarnia County This Week, the Sarnia Observer, even into the Windsor and London newspapers and media, and to maintain some communication on Facebook and Twitter is absolutely critical, because as we have seen over the last 12 weeks, which is an extraordinarily bookended piece of time, we don't get all the facts. We get a lot of dissemination and switching and playing with language and finger pointing and changing data and changing information, and general unwillingness to really get down to the truth and to cold hard facts. We need to know what greenhouse gas emissions are. We need to know the actual amount of water they need to use. We need to be told that they will be given water priority in drought conditions, if that is true. We need to know where they're sourcing the water. We need to know what kind of residue and particulate matter is left over from these 300-foot smokestacks. So what I'm asking of you all, because you are so tremendous and you are great detectives and you are dogged, to keep the communication going, to reach out, to allow our website to share information, which is critical. I'm starting to write letters already. I would encourage everybody to do that. It is important. It's important for the environment. It's important for future generations. I noticed that the St. Clair Township municipality did not pay any direct attention to environmental issues or to First Nations issues. And this is First Nations territory as well along the St. Clair River. So that's my soapbox moment, folks. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And let's go for this. Let's go at them.
Thank you, Susan, very much for your soapbox moment. There's, you're very good at it. It's a good soapbox, and there's comments and a lot of love being shown to you in the chat box. So this, like I said, this part of the agenda was hearing from the steering committee, and what we're going to do next is invite several people several community leaders who've been very active in this campaign to speak to two questions. You know, it is a milestone that, let me pause for a second. It is a milestone that Xinyi has said they're leaving indefinitely. It's not completely done. I mean, the MZO has to be dealt with, and we have to be completely sure Xinyi's gone. It's interesting with the mayor's statement that they haven't formally communicated with the city yet. So there are still some loose ends around this. And as you heard from the speakers just now, there are various loose ends we're following up on. So there's still some, mopping up to be done here. But some things have been accomplished. Some things are still undone. And we've asked each of the following speakers to address those two questions. What has the community together accomplished so far? What is still left for the community to do? I invite you to make comments in the chat box as this conversation is going forward. And we're going to ask Lorena McKenna to speak first, and she from Wise Communities. And Lorena, your camera's on, but you need to turn your microphone on. There you are.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to extend my incredible thanks to everyone for what an incredible job leaning against this wheel. This whole episode took us quite by surprise. And it's quite sobering as we assembled this timeline over the past few months to see how far down the line the whole story runs, particularly from September of 2018. And I wanted to extend particular thanks to all the folks that Get Concerned, particularly for their, as I say, dogged research there. It's not easy in this kind of environment. And there are a lot of other people who aren't formally in that group, but who've been on the periphery that have certainly sent us valuable information and have done so much in so many ways. So I wanted to extend my sincere thanks for all of that. As I don't want to take up an abundance of time, as many of you will know, we've formally launched our notice that we will be having a rally on Monday. The rally will primarily be there to breathe a bit of support to those who are, we're all looking for the MZO to be revoked. And I understand Councillor Sebin has initiated that journey, and we want to just give the rest of the councillors a bit more encouragement. We certainly have felt that the annexation piece is the next one that we personally would like to see dealt with. We'd like to see the property revert back into the county, and certainly take the view that we need to find and reach a higher bar in terms of how land is used going forward. We know in this whole subject that we've talked about the scarcity of water, but I think we need to apply the same kind of sensitivity and protection for the land. I grew up in a farm outside of Morden, Manitoba, and I remember when our property, part of it was annexed to put a railway spur, and just how unsettling that whole experience was. But I think also this has also been an opportunity, I think, for people who are living in the city to become a bit closer to the rural community. And for that, I'm very, very grateful. I was delighted that we had somebody from the Perth Federation of Agriculture, and I think they're sending a document for me to read on Monday. But I think this is another key component, is that we keep our radar and our interest and our advocacy as wide as possible, particularly to the people that are in the rural area and what they're living through, and which is why I want to see the annexation piece be undone, where these lands back into the county. And then as Susan, no, it was Susan, it was Deborah, some of these wonderful ideas. I think there's lots of possibilities, and this is part of the forward-looking road that lays ahead of us. I also want to just make a mention to Susan McSherry there. That was very, very inspiring to hear you speak. And I believe that this group here has exhibited a kind of unusual strength as a community. And I, for one, if there's anything we can do to help the path forward, we see that across the province, there are many communities that are suffering from the misuse and abuse of the MZOs. And so I think we all need to, if we can, lean into the broader community across this province. I think that was pretty much it. I also wanted to mention that there was a wonderful podcast that someone sent to me that was of the journalist from the Star, Noura Jared. It's a very good piece if you can lay your hands on it. I think Kathy C had sent it to me. And in it, she covers this particular our Stratford episode, but also shares with the listener a piece of information which I had read in the paper, that the mayor did apologize. In the sense that he made a mistake in terms of asking for an MZO. And I think in this path forward, as a community, we're going to have to find ways to heal. And that certainly is part of the process of the civic improvement exercise that we're slowly nudging along. And I hope soon to be able to bring forward in a more public way what we're thinking of, so we can get even more input. But I would say that this initiative was encouraged and endorsed as an effort anyway by the mayor himself. So I think that's really all I'd like to say. But I'd just like to extend my deepest thanks to everyone. It was truly a team effort, and there's no way this could have happened without everyone playing their very special role. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorena. There's lots of appreciation being shown for you in the chat box. I hope you'll take the time to read it. Somebody asked what time the rally is on Monday. I think it's at noon. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And we put in the chat box, again, because of the public health restrictions, the maximum is 100 people. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
So that we put a link in the chat box, and I'm going to ask, it's just been put in again right now, where you can sign up to register for that rally.
What I might add one more thing, is that on any signage that people are coming to their rally with, they might want to make sure that the signage is really focused now on the MZO and perhaps the revoking of the lands back to the county. That might be something to consider.
That's a very helpful suggestion. Okay, we're going to hear next from Emily Chandler. Emily, have you got ready to turn your microphone and your video on?
Yep, my video's on. Microphone is on.
You're all good then.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. I am chair of the City of Stratford's Energy and Environment Committee, and I'm celebrating tonight. It's, I think, as many people have said, I'm still in shock and really amazed at what this group of people has accomplished. It's something that truly is remarkable. And if I'm being honest, at many times, I thought was unachievable. What you have done is created an organized, multifaceted, because there were so many parts to this project, unrelenting and united front to this mammoth project that had lots of money, lots of steam, lots of history that we didn't know about, and lots of political handshakes. In terms of what we've won so far, I don't love to use the word won in regards to democracy, because it is a right, but I think that we've won the opportunity here in Stratford and also at the provincial level to challenge the status quo of how politics is being handled. And also, I think we've won bragging rights about what can be achieved through collective action. This group of people that got together through these Zoom meetings and through rallies and did the research and put up a fight against what was largely considered a done deal. Moving forward, what needs to continue is to maintain this engagement and for people to remain mobilized and be politically active in things that are happening in our community. Practically speaking, and directly in front of us on Monday, there is a climate action plan being presented to Stratford City Council. Right now it's being proposed with a 10% reduction under 2017 GHG emissions, and frankly that's too little, but we need to share that we think that that's too little. And so when you look at how this project came to be, it was happening at the same time as the community pushing for a climate action plan to be created. And if that plan were in place, you'd hope that projects like this would be considered through that lens of what are the GHG emissions, what is the impact on our water supply, is this a good idea for our community? So I think the silver lining is that moving forward, there's momentum to examine and improve how things are being done politically. And I just want to say once more, congratulations. I'm so relieved, and the fight continues, but truly a reason to celebrate tonight.
Thank you, Emily. And when you say bragging rights, I just want to add something in here for a second. The article in the Toronto Star by Noor Javed that has been referred to a couple times here tonight, Noor contacted us and told us that it was the most read article in the Toronto Star for the 2 days that it ran. And that she got, if Mike wants to come on the microphone for a minute and tell this story, she got a lot of feedback. And Mike, do you want to just take a minute and tell us people what Noor said to you?
She said she was astounded that it was the most read article for 2 days running in the entire Toronto Star, in spite of COVID, in spite of all the rest of the stuff that was going on. This touched a nerve. And she started hearing from people wondering, how do they duplicate what we did? What is the secret? What is the way forward? And she passed some of those people on to me, and then she created that lovely podcast, which Lorena will try and find somebody to stick on the chat box so other people can see it. But Noor is still paying attention to the whole MZO. She's the Toronto Star's person attached to the MZO file, and she's paying attention to all the communities that are having the same trouble.
Thanks, Mike. So yes, the podcast link has just been put in the chat box, and we'll organize that into an email and send it out to everybody afterwards. So this community, all of you, the bragging rights, you have bragging rights. And one of the things that I think we should make a sticker or a medal you can all wear. You're the first community to defeat an MZO. It's not rescinded yet, but you're the first community to stop having an MZO rammed down your political throat. And that's a big, big deal. So as we continue, pat yourself on the back, or just reach over into the square next to the person next to you and reach over there and pat them on the back. Okay, I'm going to ask next for Jeff Love to speak to the very same questions. Jeff.
Sure, I have another first to add to this too. I know the Small Change Fund folks, and they were frankly blown away by the speed with which, when the call went out to organize some funds to get something to happen, I think they said they raised $19,000 in the first night, and they had never come close to something like that before. So, there's a confluence of things here. So in terms of thinking what's worked, I think the confluence to me of the experience from the folks in Wellington, and I think it's really important that we're all talking as well how we can support the folks down in the St. Clair area, or Sarnia area. But you guys brought a level of experience and confidence, and Mike, you in particular, I think your ability to manage a meeting like this is terrific. We're in new times here. Doing activism through Zoom is a totally new experience. And I think you guys have done a remarkable job of bringing your experience and then connecting with people here locally. And one of the other things I've really appreciated, frankly, is the tenor of the conversations. I mean, some of the comments in the chat box to the mayor, including mine, were a bit sharp, but they weren't disrespectful. They were sharp because we were annoyed, and I think we were annoyed with good reason. So I think that the coming together of people here with the experience you guys brought was quite amazing. I have a bit of I really appreciated what Emily said in terms of the awakening here. I've been here for 10 years, and it's an odd experience to live in such a progressive community. I've been involved in environmental affairs all my life, but this place has been asleep, and I really regret that. And this issue has woken the place up, which I think is terrific. And I have an odd view on this, in that I think if the MZO had not been put forward, which technically speaking pissed everybody off, I'm not sure we would have been successful. I think what happened here was the ham-headedness by the way the leaders in this community tried to push this through was a critical part of our ability to put this thing down. And I know this sounds odd. I'm glad they did it, and I'm not surprised. I find your comment, Mike, fascinating. That our ability to have upset the MZO was an important part of what people are learning from this, and that's good news. So in terms of going forward, I also want to echo Emily's point. My engagement in this is more around the greenhouse gas issues. I am shocked that I live in a community that declared climate emergency I think it's almost to the day a year ago. And the first action our community was going to take after declaring a climate emergency was to double greenhouse gas emissions for our city. It just takes your breath away, which says even if the city in the next 10 years had got rid of all of its emissions, we would have been in a worse place 10 years from now than we are right now. Emily has mentioned it. So there's now a climate action plan coming before council with a target of 10% reduction over the first 10 years. We'll get a 10% reduction virtually by the result of the market penetration of electric vehicles into our city. So this 10% plan is exactly a do nothing plan. And to her credit, Anne organized a meeting last night with Climate Momentum with the mayor, Dave Maryberry from Oxford. They set a target of 2% a year, I think starting in 2018. They've been reducing by 4.5% because they just said, let's just get it done. And this is a community of total budget of $6 million, I think something like 8 million people, 8,000 people. And it's so encouraging to see someone like that say, let's just get it done. So I think the go forward for me is, I really hope Get Concerned, Lorena's Wise Communities, Climate Momentum, Energy Environment Committee can collaborate, because we've got some really heavy lifting to do here to get a climate action plan that has some teeth and that has targets and has investments against it. My last comment, probably the single most important part of this thing is I'd like to see a turnaround here. As sort of an environmental guy, I've been on all the committees with Emily and other committees as well. I've always felt that when we come forward as a group of, I'll say, progressive people trying to build our community, the response from the bureaucracy is, oh, please go away, don't do that. And I really hope we can cross a bridge here where engaged people, we got 200 people on this call, we've had 250 people out to these calls. I really hope we can get the city to say, we're in it with you. We want to work with you to make this happen, rather than the continual resistance that says, can't be done, not here. For us to set a target of 10% reduction in the middle of a climate crisis is shameful. And I just hope we find a way of getting council and the city government, because we've got some great people working here, to say, let's go forward together. Let's set ambitious targets. Let's fail if we don't make it, but let's at least set the sights high. So thank you for Get Concerned, and thanks very much for your guys' experience. It's been very helpful.
Thank you, Jeff. We're going to ask now Tori Sutton to speak to these questions. And then after that, we're going to hear from Leslie. So Tori?
Hi, everyone. I was a little late to the party tonight, about 20 minutes. I was wrangling my little one. So I'm not sure if I might be the first person to cry during this meeting tonight, but it might happen. I know I told Melissa earlier in the week when we all got the news that I was having a very emotional moment, and I was sort of relieved to hear that she was as well. And I've certainly heard that from other people in the last few minutes, and we weren't alone. I waded into this publicly in December. For those, most of you know, I did cover Stratford City Council from 2003 to late 2012 as a local journalist. And I have a lot of thoughts about what goes on in the city, but I very, very rarely kind of spew it. But this one finally, pulled me back out of the woodwork. And in that letter I wrote to City Council that I shared online in December, I actually said, the use of the MZO was foolish, knowing how vociferously Stratford defends its rights. And I just have to say how amazed and proud I am that everything that everyone has done just illustrated what I had to say in that letter. We were on the right side of things. I was feeling a little defeated, maybe a little tired, and I hadn't even been at it as long as all of you. But to come out the other side, I really think is a great accomplishment. I've seen a lot of, movements, I guess you could call it, over my years covering council, whether it be, official plan amendment 10 and the bid to keep Walmart out, and a lot of other contentious issues. And I just don't think I have had, in my experience, seen anything with the heart and soul and the passion and the diversity of people come together. And that has been really special for me too, because just on a personal level, it's allowed me to reconnect with so many people I haven't talked to in so long. And then to meet new people as well, and people that have, joined us in our community in the last 10 years that maybe I haven't gotten to know in the middle of a pandemic when we're all isolated. So I just, that is so special. As you know, I did have a video I was editing, and so many of you contributed and fought the technology that you weren't, comfortable with to submit. And I've had a few people say, we'd actually hoped to launch it this week, say, you've done a lot of work and spent a lot of time editing. Aren't you disappointed? And I say no. I would spend all the time kind of behind the scenes that I've done, which has only been this much. To not have to share that video, I think is amazing. Now, with that said, I was really touched by the amount of support and some of the messages people shared. I have had at least one person reach out and express concern that, while they were comfortable speaking publicly while this was still going on, they are not so comfortable having, that footage released after the fact. And I totally respect that. So I haven't talked to the committee yet, but I think I'll just sit on some of that footage. And if we have a future use for it, we can certainly go through the channels of obtaining people's permission. In terms of what's next, I think that we need to start here. So we know that municipal elections have the lowest turnout of anything, municipal, provincial, federal. And I've always found that really shameful, because the decisions that are made at 1 Wellington Street are the ones that have the greatest direct impact on our everyday life. And as someone who, sat in council chambers for 10 years, the audience is often sparse. So just to echo, what some of the speakers before me have said, I think, this is just a big red flag that we need to stay aware, and we need to stay involved, and we need to carry this forward, not only to see, the annexation and the MZO dealt with, to lend our assistance to other communities, but to just recognize that there are a lot of things, in my opinion, that go on politically in this city that we do need to pay more attention to. I would never malign the local journalists. I know they're all doing the best job they can with not a huge budget or a lot of resources, but there is a big gap in information and in news coverage in Stratford nowadays. And I think that, even the work that some people that are in this group have done in terms of their sleuthing and their research has been really incredible. And I have a lot of respect for those efforts. I do think that it is important to follow through and let our leaders know that even though this might be over in Stratford, I do feel there has to be some accountability for the situation at hand. It isn't going to be just a write-off and we're on to the next topic. And I think that we need to stay on people, keep our eyes peeled, and then we need to speak at the polls and really let them know what we think. We need to think critically of our leadership. There's so many people who have been in council for a very long time, and they don't really get questioned too often. So I do see that role. I touched on it in the support, and I know others have talked about this, the support of the next community in this fight. And the one thing that was brought up by some people who were in favor of the project or Xinyi itself was that, it was a NIMBYism thing. It was a not in my backyard. And, the snide comments online like, well, when it's in another community, are you going to care as much, Stratford? Let's show them we do care as much. you know, as so many before me have said, like, we have great momentum. We know we have a lot to offer, and why not share the resources? And again, just to show them, this wasn't just about our backyard, that we are willing to take this a step forward. In the same vein, just kind of echoing what Lorena said, you know, I think this is the time to lean into the bigger issue of the use of the MZOs in the province. I know in some of our brainstorming meetings, it was like, oh, well, we start going after the Ford government, and it was hard to decide where our attentions were best focused. But now I think that we have cleared this small hurdle, or at least started the process locally, that there is so many other communities in Ontario that are facing issues with these zoning orders, and we have something to lend there as well. You know, I just think this is just like really, really phenomenal. You know, I always joke that everything is harder in a pandemic, and the fact that we could all come together and do this during this time speaks volumes about the people of Stratford. It speaks volumes about our community. I'm not going to cry. I told you I wasn't going to cry. And I just want to thank you all. I didn't know if I could be of any help. I'm kind of surprised I'm talking here now, but just thank you so much for welcoming me in with open arms. You sort of reinvigorated my passion for what's going on in the city, reinvigorated my passion for writing. When I wrote that letter to council, it really brought that back. So, you know, I've got kind of lots of ideas floating in my head. So thank you all. You're all amazing. You did a great job.
Thank you, Tori. Your comments about accountability are really resonating in the chat box. I hope you'll look at it. And people want to see the video. So I think that maybe when we have our next meeting, Tori, I think we should have home movies. And there may be reasons not to release it to the social media universe, but I think it would be a good home movies part of our next meeting. I see you nodding. So let's think about doing that next time. The last speaker in this series is Leslie, and I think Sharon put together a slideshow, and Leslie's going to talk as the slideshow unfurls, I think, and I think it's timed very cleverly for 5 minutes. So that'll be in 5 minutes, we'll move to the next section of the agenda. So I'm going to turn it over to Leslie and Megan or Danny, who's ever running the slideshow.
Hello, everyone. I'm speaking not just for myself, but for my sister Vigilista, Peggy Coffey, and for all the wonderful, wonderful citizens who stood on guard for Stratford with us for 36 days. So I just want to state that if there is some issue with this MZO, if there is some issue where this annexation is not repaired, we are determined, and we will be back on the steps of City Hall. The vigilers will be there. We will be bringing light back to any issues until the Xinyi thing is absolutely gone. So the vigil was effective, but it was effective because of all the powerful people that were behind, for all Mike and Megan from Water Watchers, all the wonderful organizers from Get Concerned, Sharon opening up her porch to the whole city, Wise Communities putting needed light on the political issues. So the vigil was effective because of what we were standing in front of, all these powerful, wise, determined people. Well, Stratford is now a beacon. It is a light. And I have, for years, I have written to councillors. Bunting always thought my writings were too long. But we have all the ingredients in Stratford. We have the artists, we have the intellectuals, we have the expertise in agriculture and light industry. We have all the ingredients to be really a visionary center. And it's so necessary at this time on our planet. We can find the ways to be a leading light, to explore how we get the greenhouse gases down, to be very active with it, plant trees all around the Grand Trunk Railroad building, to take that Grand Trunk Railroad building that was of Stratford's deep and important past, but a polluting past, and take it full circle so that it becomes a leading light in how we go into a more responsible future. Solar panels, of course, let's get the newest, the most least polluting kinds of solar panels. Let's plant trees all around it. Let's have thinking cells in the building to discover new ways to how to go into a much more responsible future on our beautiful little blue-green planet floating in the blackness of the universe. Peggy and I really want to thank Noord Javed. It was such a pleasure to work with her on her articles and to have the follow-up article as well as the original one. And the podcast, what a wonderful thing. And Peggy and I were both very moved and pleased that Noor reached out to us for our opinion on the on her podcast, and I'm sure we'd be happy to post that if it was if you wanted. And she is such an important and powerful voice for the grassroots, for struggles happening in all over Ontario. The 413 poor Sarnia now with Xinyi sniffing at them. So we have to fan that sacred light. We have to fan that sacred light that we have lit with all our wills, fighting against this danger. Well, Saturday, tomorrow, would have been day 40 on the vigil. We love these dogs. Look at these guys. We always, all our dogs were so against Xinyi. It was wonderful. But I wanted to tell you about a couple of surprises that we weren't able to talk about earlier. One day on vigil, I was standing with my sign, the one that says "Save our water" or "Protect our water," and a gentleman came up to me, and he didn't know what was going on about this. He said, "What is this about?" And he said he noticed water and then Xinyi, and so I explained what was going on. And he told me, well, he'd grown up in Stratford and he loved Stratford so dearly, even though he still doesn't live here. And that's one thing that our city has. Many people from all over love our city. They love to come visit here. They feel like honorary citizens. So they are a force for us. So anyway, this gentleman tells me that he loves Stratford and he's actually a scientist and he can help us. Well, it turns out that he is a professional hydrogeologist. And I put him in touch with Sharon Collingwood, who had been begging, who had been praying apparently for several days for a hydrogeologist, and he appeared. He came because we were standing there on vigil. So he was our secret weapon and a wonderful guy, and we thank him. The other surprise I wanted to mention is that our story has traveled. It's traveled to New York because I went, oh, look at this list of these. And if we forgot any name, please forgive us. Wonderful people. So many of them came out almost every day. It was, as Kathy C says, the best party in town. It was fun to always get together, no matter you had freezing toes and noses and fingers. Anyway, back to my story about how our story has traveled to New York. Well, last night I thought I would pop down to my post about day 36, the day that we were out there. I had my wings on because I wore my wings on day 36 when we knew that Xinyi had withdrawn, and also when Biden was inaugurated. But I went down to my day 36 post, and there was a congratulations from Dale Sewells. Now, you may not recognize that name, but she is a famous actor. She played the character Frida Berlin in Orange is the New Black. And she sent congratulations to our city. I guess she'd followed some of the posts. We had, we knew each other way back in another incarnation because she was the young magic assistant that was hired for the magic show on Broadway. And I had to train her. I had to teach her the ways of magic at that point. But we hadn't been in contact for years and years and years. And there she is. She had seen Stratford's victory against this plant. Well, I think I've talked a little bit about a vision for the future, to be a responsible leader in this climate emergency. Yes, yes, please. I want to be part of that. I'd love to see this amazing, intelligent group of such wonderful willpower to go forward to help Stratford and Ontario and the planet. So I think we should have a summer party on the former Xinyi grounds. Thank you. Thank you from my heart to everyone. And I did almost start to cry when Peggy Seeger's song came on. Thank you to everyone.
Thank you, Leslie. And there's lots and lots of affection for you and for Peggy and the work that you've done and all the other vigilistas in the chat box. We're getting near the end. We were going to create an opportunity here for Mike and Melissa. I don't know who's quite going to go next to say, just to add from the steering committee's perspective, kind of what's been won, what's left to do. And then we're going to go into some closing comments. So Melissa, why don't we go with Mike first, and then Melissa, that'll ease us into the next portion with you.
Oh, darn. What's been won is an abandonment of Stratford by Xinyi. And clearly the city believes the same thing has happened. And that couldn't have happened without all the people that are on this call and all the people that are behind the people on this call and all the people in Stratford who supported us, who sent us money, who dropped 20s into Sharon's mattress in Stratford, because she tells us that she has a lot of money stuffed in a mattress somewhere. We couldn't have done this without all of you. And I can't speak highly enough of the way the city of Stratford has responded. It's been absolutely amazing. What's left to do has been said a number of times by people here tonight. We need to rescind the MZO. We need to figure out what to do with the annex land. Growing strawberries was something that was done on some of it, so maybe strawberries would be a good idea. But and we need to figure out how democracy is supposed to work in Stratford. It clearly was broken. It clearly is not the preferred method of how City Hall business is run by the voices of all the people we've heard. They're not happy with what's happened. I think that it's one thing for the mayor to just make a statement of regret, but it's quite another in 2 years' time for the electorate to tell the mayor exactly how they feel about his regret. And maybe by then he'll have done something to endear himself to everybody again. I don't know, but there certainly was a problem, and the town rose up to it. And we could not. This wasn't a fight we went looking for. This all happened in a space of a couple of weeks in October and November, when suddenly we discovered this had happened. And as someone said, we all thought it was a done deal. It's not, thank goodness. The other things left to do are a bunch of the accountability issues, rescinding the MZO, dealing with the land, giving Stratford some guidance on how to conduct themselves in secret meetings, whether they're supposed to have them or not. And in Susan's words, to write down the story and give it to other people, and to lead by example in other places should they need it. The folks in Duffins Creek are running their own battle against an MZO there that was to bespoil a provincial wetland. And so far they haven't had the same luck that we've had, luck or skill or or success that we've had here. But we're helping them. I hear from them. I'm sending them notes. Others are too. And so we consider ourselves lucky, but also be vigilant and continue to be vigilant. Should Xinyi ever come back? I don't think they are. But also continue to be vigilant that City Hall is run in a way that we want it to be run. Emily didn't mention this, but I'm going to speak to Council on Monday about the climate action plan that only asks for a 10% reduction between now and 2030. Whoa, wait a minute. It's way bigger than that. The problem is much, much bigger than that. And until the council understands that, they're not going to really take it seriously, and we need them to take it seriously. So that's my comments, and I'll pass it on to Melissa.
Okay, so I have a laundry list of thank yous, so everyone bear with me. It's a bit long, but it really all needs to be said. So I'm going to start with Leslie Walker Fitzpatrick and Peggy Coffey, who all religiously man post at City Hall for 36 long, cold days. I know the photos and stories were an inspiration to all of us. And I know that you guys educated a ton of people down there, people that might not have otherwise even known what was going on. So thank you for that. To Tori Sutton for your inside knowledge on council, and for all of the countless hours and emotions and frustrations that went into editing all of the videos and the photos and the clips. We're so grateful. I know we haven't gotten to see it, and I'm sure it's fantastic, but like you said, I think there's power in knowing that you don't need to go there. So that's great too. To Ann Carbert and Climate Momentum for lending us your knowledge and your audience, and for getting the word out a little bit wider. And hopefully we can pay that forward, our group, to help you guys with the climate emergency moving forward. To David Donnelly, the environmental lawyer extraordinaire who has now triumphed over Xinyi not once, but twice. We're so grateful for his professional advice and guidance. To Peggy Seeger for the music that has somehow become our unofficial theme song. I loved it the first time I heard it, and I've loved it every time since. I nearly cried this time when it played earlier, actually. And to thank her for her encouragement in our fight. To Dan Graver and everyone who made formal Freedom of Information requests and sent the findings in to us. Your investigative skills have been so greatly appreciated, and thank you for the update today. That was definitely eye-opening as well. To all of the speakers from all of our past 6 community Zoom meetings, it's hard to believe that tonight is our 7th time that we've all gathered together. Thank you to Lorena McKennett and Wise Communities. I think that our groups have existed separately, but always together. And we have the utmost respect for all that you've uncovered and brought to the fight. To Emily Chandler and the Energy and Environment Committee for your opposition to the project from the beginning and everything that you've brought forward to it from here on. Thank you to this wonderful community and all of those that love Stratford enough to have gotten involved, sent us tips and information, written letters, made phone calls to council, delivered flyers in your neighborhood, made donations to the campaign, posted a sign in your yard, attended our Zoom meetings, told a friend. Without all of those things, none of this would have been possible. To the Wellington Water Watchers crew, Mike Bockwell, Megan, Shifra, Danny, for all of the behind the scenes work. I don't think anyone can even imagine how much that actually amounts to: the editing of videos, coordinating of emails, moderating these Zoom calls, providing guidance and encouragement and experience and knowledge. And for talking me back to sanity on more than one occasion. It's been a long few months. I don't believe we'd be where we are today if it wasn't for all that you've done. If anyone knows of someone that's fighting a similar fight, I would strongly encourage you to have them reach out to the Water Watchers. Their crew is fantastic. They will be of great assistance in anyone fighting anything similar. And finally, from me to the Get Concerned Stratford Steering Committee, the most heartfelt thank you. Mike, Sharon, Jamie, Deb, Doug, and Susan. The Zoom calls per week, at least one, sometimes two, sometimes three. We've seen a lot of each other. It's been a little bit crazy, and I've said on multiple occasions on Sunday nights when we don't have a Zoom, I miss you all. It's gotten to be a bit of a routine. You have become family, you feel like family, and I will miss you. So hopefully we'll all keep in touch after this is over. So for anyone that I've missed, I hope that that's no one. I genuine thank you to everyone. I've met some of the most incredible people that this city has to offer, I think, in the last 3 months. I'm so incredibly grateful for this experience. I'm also very incredibly grateful that it's over, or at least headed in that general direction. So thank you to everyone. And I just, that's all. That's all. It wasn't a done deal.
Thank you, Melissa. Somebody early in your comments wrote in the chat box, Melissa takes the Oscar and gives out all the deserved thank yous. So this is your award-winning moment. I'm just going to add a couple of words here before we conclude. The first part is just in terms of next steps. I won't repeat some things people have said, but there is some mopping up to do here in terms of the MZO, in terms of the annexation, in terms of the details of this before we can completely say the Xinyi chapter is closed. The book is closing, it's almost closed. There's some details to pay attention to. I just cannot imagine Xinyi trying to get back into this community and the council doing anything to let them back in based on the fierce, committed, respectful resistance you've put up to this. Would seem unimaginable to me, but we do have to be vigilant till the very end. And that will bring together the end of this chapter. And there are suggestions there have been suggestions in the chat box all night about what next for Get Concerned Stratford. And frankly, Get Concerned Stratford came together quickly, immediately to fight the immediate threat of Xinyi, the glass plant's impact on the environment, to protect the water, to protect the air, to protect the community's health. And there was no thought to anything else. And now is the time to pause and think about what if anything should Get Concerned do next. And in the next little while, the steering committee is going to meet and then design a way to ask you about what next. Should Get Concerned Stratford continue? If it does continue, what should its mandate be? Who should lead it? Those are all questions for you, the community, we all together to talk about, and the leadership has committed to put together some kind of way to talk about that. I always say to groups when I work with them after they've won, first of all, to celebrate. And this is a beginning of celebration. And some people have suggested that we might not be able to have a real celebration, the celebration you want to have, until some of the rules are restricted and we can meet again. But Mike Sullivan was just modeling with the glass he raised to his lips. And I think Manfred said in the chat box that we can all have a virtual toast. And I'm going to out Emily just a little bit. She was making martini noises at the beginning of the meeting that she was going to have tonight to celebrate. So there are ways for us virtually to celebrate. The celebrating can go on. I see several people raising their glass. Good. You already started. It's interesting to me you all had your glasses off screen until now, though. We could have started this a lot earlier if we'd had permission. Anyway, so there's still some celebrating to do. And there's some things and there's some conversations to have about going forward. But one of the things I say to groups when they've accomplished something is to celebrate. The second thing is to take time to understand how you won. And there've been comments about that, and we're going to convene some meetings to talk in some detail about that, because unfortunately, people either think that they can't fight City Hall and win, or they think it's a magical process and it happens magically in one place and it can't be replicated anywhere else. It's only through the magic of the people of Stratford and who led it that you were able to stop it here, and nobody else would ever be able to replicate your experience. And that's just not true. And there's a method, there's a recipe, and while you can't guarantee when you fight that you will win, you can guarantee that if you don't fight, you will lose. And so you can fight and win. You have fought and won. David, and more importantly, Davida can beat Goliath. And you have. And it's important for us to take some time to learn from this, what you've done, so that Peggy's got her "We Did It" sign up there, and I hope you can see that, for us to take that so we can learn from those lessons and pay those lessons forward in terms of the issues you're talking about in your community. So that too is on the work for us to do. That remains for us to do, remains to be done by us. I think I just want to say a personal thing in terms of the COVID pandemic experience. I've worked in many communities on many campaigns. We've won lots, we've lost some. As I said, you never lose as long as you fight. But this is the first time I've organized in a community where I have not set foot in the community during the course of the campaign. 3 months of fighting Xinyi with you, and I haven't set foot in the community. So first of all, it's shocking to me. Secondly, it teaches me and it teaches the water watchers we can do more of this kind of organizing in communities that we don't have to travel to. But third, I look forward to the day when I can drive to Stratford and the rules are down and we can all gather together and celebrate with you the things that you've accomplished, which are significant, and you should own and cherish this moment. Not everybody gets to have it. Not everybody gets to have it very often. It's a unique experience that you've all had together, and it's worth holding on to. With those comments, we're going to bring this meeting to a close. We're going to leave the chat box open so that if there's appreciation you want to send to anybody, if there's questions you want to leave in the chat box, that you can do that. And we will be keeping in touch, following up on these details. And it's really important that we support Corey Sebin and his notice of motion on Monday around rescinding the MZO and following that through to the council meeting next month. We'll keep in touch on those immediate things. We'll keep in touch with you about the next steps. Enjoy your weekend, and we will see you next time. Good night, everybody.